All right, you're watching Things I Think I Know about the Cleveland Browns, the always spectacular Quincy Carrier is here with me. We are going to switch over to wide receiver, which I've done an article on now and a couple videos just kind of on where my head is at with this room, which is not great, right? It's not a great room. This Browns room is not very good. But on the surface, I'm kind of at the point, Q, where okay, like Gabe Davis was a good example when he became available, right? There's a lot of people like, oh, get Gabe Davis. What does that do? Like, I don't want to bring in a veteran that's going to take snaps away from the younger guys on this roster. Like, this is the type of year where you find out what Jamari Thrash really is, or anybody else young on this roster, what they really are, right?
Mm-hmm.
The question is, are there even enough young guys to test in that role?
Well, there
That
certainly
you're
are enough
intrigued about.
bodies. Intrigue, there's not a ton of intrigue there for me
Right,
personally.
yeah.
The truth is, what's happening at the wide receiver position, they can mask it as, okay, we're trying to give guys opportunities. But the truth is that this is the reality of the fact that rebuilding an NFL roster takes more than 1 year to do, right? You just can't get to everything in one offseason and do it well. You can try to draft everything and fix every need, right? But, oftentimes roster reconstruction projects are multi-year deals. And this is part of it. Like, it usually, if you look at how the Browns reconstructed the roster when Kevin and Andrew got here, it was a 3-year project, right? Like, the same is true in this one, right? So with these wide receivers, like, yeah, let's see what Jamari Thrash has. He didn't get a ton of snaps. Cedric Tillman, I could be excited about Cedric Tillman.
No, I'm excited about Tillman, yeah.
I think David Bell, like, if we're limiting him to, a third, fourth wide receiver role, I think there's something there you can get out of David Bell as well, right? Mike Woods, okay, yeah, let's see what we can get out of Mike Woods. I'm going to be honest, I think this team's going to run the ball about 600 times, this year. They're going to run this thing a lot. They got two dudes who are used to taking a ton of carries. And, like, every time I look at Junkins, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's every down back. Like, that is a big man.
Oh, yeah.
He looks like he's built to run the football, right? Like,
he looks so good, too, in those footwork drills. He looks so explosive, big. I'm excited about him, yeah, for sure.
I watched him do his cuts and, like, see him physically, and I can't wait I hope I get the chance to see him in person during camp. But I was watching him, and I thought to myself, it's incredible a dude like that can be drafted in the second round, and people are, like, debating whether that was good or not. Like, and Maurice Jones-Drew had him as his fourth best running back in the entire class. He had him as a guy who can start right away and play right away. So, there's a lot there. But the Browns are probably going to run the ball 600 times, which means outside of Jerry Jeudy, who's going to get the number one share of the targets, then David Njoku's going to get number 2, probably somewhere between Cedric Tillman and Harold Fannin going to get number 3 or 4, right? Then you have to factor in, this looks like a year where you're going to toss the ball to your running back a lot, right? Where else are those targets to be had, right? What are the opportunities that are going to be there at wide receiver? And that's where I find, like, peace. If, like, I look at it as pass catcher instead of wide receiving room, then it makes more sense how they've constructed this roster, right? Because they are violently getting away from what they did last year. They're not going to have these, like, 5 wide sets where they're just going to let whoever the quarterback cook. They're not going to lean on quarterback that heavily anymore. They're going to always have a tight end out there. It's going to be 11. It's going to be 12. Might even see a little 13 out there, right? Like, all of this stuff, right? Maybe we finally get 23, right? Right? Or 22 personnel. I don't know if you could run 23, but 22 personnel with 2 tight ends, 2 running backs, right? So maybe that's something that you go out there and you do. But yeah, this is going to be a year where the Browns are going to, play Jim Tressel football, basically, right? Like, that's what this necessitates. The downside to that is there's a low margin of error to win when you play like that, and that's why I can't predict this team to be over 500. But, it does put a lot less stress on your skill players. I think the real X factor for this wide receiver room is there going to be a quarterback who emerges this season who's not afraid to take the take the opportunities downfield when they're there, right? I think that's where Joe Flacco and Shedeur Sanders are very interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because what my fear is with Kenny Pickett and Dylan Gabriel is that they're going to be so afraid to throw an interception that it's going to turn into that DTR check down nonsense where DTR was terrified to throw the ball downfield. The thing that made the offense look better with Jameis, the thing that made the offense look better with Joe Flacco was that Joe Flacco and Jameis had the confidence and the willingness to say, I'm going to throw that. Right.
Yep.
And that's what Kevin's offense requires. Right. And
it does.
I've had this conversation. I just had this conversation with Cole. But here's the thing about Kevin. He don't care that you're a rookie. Right. Yeah. He don't care how long you've had to learn the offense. The job is the job to Kevin.
Yep.
And, the guy that's going to get there and be afraid to throw it downfield, that guy might be able to play for a couple of games, but that guy's not going to last that long in AFC North because they'll key in on that and they'll turn that into a nightmare. The guy who's going to have success in this offense has to be willing to be on time, trust the offense, and let her rip, right, with anticipation. That's the guy who's going to take this offense to the next level. That's the guy Kevin wants. And Joe Flacco's skill set fits that more. Shedeur's skill set fits that more. Yeah. Where I find the divide interesting and what the internal divide is going to be for Kevin himself is this. Those are the guys who are going to have more success operating your offense. They're going to turn the ball over more, right?
Yeah.
Kenny and Dylan, they ain't going to turn the ball over much.
Never.
So what are you going to prioritize, right?
Exactly.
Being able to get those plays or being able to stay away from the turnovers. I think the higher the win-loss record, the more the Browns are going to be afraid of turning the ball over, right? Because if their win-loss record is high, that defense is amazing, right?
Yeah.
And they'll be fine playing low-yield football because they know they're going to get a lot of possessions. So, but if that win-loss record dips a little bit, they're going to need more out the offense. They're going to need, Joe or Shedeur to play. So I think a lot of the philosophy that they go with in the season with quarterback is going to tell you about what they think about this defense and how good this defense has looked in camp.
Really well said. Yeah, I didn't think about it that way, but that's absolutely right. Yeah, you want to play low-risk football with the more success they seem to have, right, on the defense side of the ball or how many games they can be in. And that's interesting, certainly. You would love to see somebody like Shedeur step up and be able to do those things and not turn it over. But
to be fair to Shedeur, not a high interception guy in college.
Correct.
And the 1 year everybody, including myself, is giving him crap for his 1 year in the Pac-12. I believe he was like 27-3 touchdown to interception ratio.
Yeah, he doesn't turn it over. Yeah.
Now, he doesn't throw interceptions. He does have fumble issues sometimes, right? Correct. Gets hit a lot, gets behind the sticks. That kind of stuff also going to drive Kevin crazy, but he can work with that. It's the interception stuff there. And I will also give Shedeur this credit. And I know talking about Shedeur can be a landmine because, there are people who make sure you want to talk about him the right way and all this stuff. But truth is that Shedeur has some issues. Shedeur has some good things about him. There are some things that are exceptional for a guy in the fifth round. There are some things that are not that exceptional for a guy in the fifth round, right? His pocket presence needs to be improved. But his ability to run an NFL offense, I think, is a bit underrated. Mm-hmm. Pat Shurmur was his offensive coordinator. Pat Shurmur's not one of these, I'm going to put the handcuffs on you, offensive coordinators, right? Pat's going to make sure you know how to do everything. You know how to do these protections. You know how to do all of this stuff. I'm pretty sure Deion made it a point of emphasis. No, you need to teach him this because he's going to have to do this in the league, right? This is the kind of stuff that Deion is going to make sure Shedeur knows. And also Shedeur, there is something to it. And I remember listening to Joe Thomas talk about this with Miles, where he's like, hey, I want you to understand what I'm thinking when I'm trying to beat you, right? And Shedeur has the perspective of the greatest corner to ever play. On what makes it easy to play against a corner, right? Like, you ever talk to corners, they swear they know who's good or not at the quarterback position. They are the most confident in that. So there's something to that amount of things that he has had built into his development that I think for the NFL might be more beneficial than it is in college, where the level of play is that high to where that margin of error stuff starts to matter a lot more.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. Stefanski did an interview on 92.3 this morning, and he mentioned in the interview that some of the Colorado staff had been in, not Dion, but I'm assuming it was probably you just said his name,
Oh, Pat Shermer, some of his
Pat
position
Shermer.
coaches. Yeah.
But either way, they had the staff in. He said to just kind of sit down and kind of mind meld some philosophies and past concepts and stuff like that, which I thought was really interesting. That they had him in, them in to talk about stuff like that as far as philosophy wise, because that just tells you that obviously they're trying to give him every opportunity to succeed, right? If they're doing things like that. So, yeah. So the question for me, as we turn back to wide receiver here a little bit, Deontay Johnson comes in.
Oh yeah, I
Who
forgot he was
knows?
here.
Yeah. Yeah. Who knows what you get out of him, but he could raise the floor in the room if he could get his head on straight. I mean, he's always been productive.
He's our Kadarius Toney signing this year, right? Like, all right, let's see if this guy can give us something.
So much better than Toney, though.
Yeah, I mean, he's had a better. Well, it's like the same philosophy, right? Like this dude can't get right. Well, let's figure out if it was just somewhere that went wrong with him, or if he's been humbled. Let's give him a chance to get right here, right? Which that philosophy worked out well for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when it comes to a guy that we gave up on in Baker Mayfield, who needed like two different teams to give up on him to get right, right? So maybe we get that same get right with Deontay Johnson. I don't think it's a bad bet. Like he was a very productive player and
great separator.
You think about it like this: what wide receivers have consistently thrived in the Kevin Stefanski offense? Like consistently, they're these 6-foot route runners, right? That are super quick and can be on time. Those are the guys who love playing in Kevin Stefanski's offense, and that is something that the Browns do provide. Now, will we have the quarterback play to make sure that he's not upset? I don't know if it's quarterback play because he got mad at the Ravens and then got mad at C.J. Stroud. But I don't know. I don't know
either.
But maybe you're getting him at the right time because what happened to him last year was so ridiculous that, I mean, if he don't understand he got to get right now, then he ain't going to ever get right.
It's never going to happen. Yeah.
Where nobody's ever going to give him a chance.
Yes, exactly. He's on a minimum non-guaranteed deal. This feels like a last chance opportunity. So you hope that he would narrow in on this. So let's hope that could be something. But here are the names from this list, their potential trade and cut candidates at wide receiver. Now, I've been over some of these because there are a couple of places like one thing I think they should be looking to do, Q, with this room is as far as we talked about, like the intrigue level is not great after Tillman. You know what I mean? And Deontay Johnson has there's some intrigue there, but like if they can get
sleep
better,
on me and Steve Smith's boy,
yeah,
Jamari Thrash.
I know.
Which, by the way, we getting burnt on Steve Smith because he didn't like Jerry Jeudy. That's the one that worked out for us, but we got to give Jamari some time, you know?
I know. I would say this. He started to get a lot of snaps at the end of last year, and he didn't look great. So, surely you got to give him time. I get that. So, but the thing with Jamari, though, is, Q, he's another slot guy. And it's like, we got slot guys, right? Like, Jerry Jeudy plays in the slot most of the time. I mean, 50% of the time. So, I don't know. Here's my thought, though, is cut downs, trades. There could be potential wide receivers that have some upside availability that you should maybe take a swing at practice squad or bring them in to maybe try to make this team if guys get cut or there are expendable guys around the league that are young and still have a chance to, have some upside. I think those are the only guys I would be interested in. I'm not trying to bring in a veteran to take away snaps from Thrash and Tillman, right?
There
I'm
is
trying to
a
bring in somebody
name
upside.
that
Go
I'm
ahead.
wondering is going to be on this list
Yes.
that I think is a no-brainer.
Okay.
I'll reveal if it comes up or at the end.
All right. So I've circled this team before, and they have one name here, but I think that the name they name here, I think it could be him or it could be other guys. But Green Bay Packers have a tremendous amount of wealth at the wide receiver position. They have Romeo Dobbs as the trade candidate. First, Gutekunst drafted the franchise's first-round wide receiver in 23 years by adding Matthew Golden, and then they added Savion Williams as well into what is an extremely crowded room with Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, both do extensions. I thought Watson would be the expendable one because of his injury history. What do you think?
So you're saying Christian Watson is going to be available?
I thought that they would move on from him. He's tore an ACL in week 17. Dobbs, I think, is better than Watson at this point, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think is Dobbs younger than Watson? Because I remember Christian Watson being a little old coming out of college, right? He was an older player.
I believe he is.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if they got rid of Dobbs before they got rid of
That's what
Watson.
I thought too.
Yeah, so but maybe they feel like they can get some trade value for Dobbs because he's younger, right?
Yeah.
That they can't get for Watson, who they would just have to cut outright. Maybe that's the thought process there, or maybe they're just in love with Watson's additional size. That makes it feel like there's something more there.
Because they also, listen to this, they also signed McCole Hardman as a free agent, and they have Dontavian Wicks, who they drafted last year. So they have Wicks, Williams, Reed, Dobbs, Watson, Hardman, Golden. Somebody has to be expendable there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's such weird wide receiving core there.
Yeah.
Right. So somebody probably has to be expendable. It seems like they're scrambling. They might trade for somebody too. Because they want to be competitive, and what we're seeing in that wide receiver room is just not good. Like, that's a lot of leaning on Golden in his rookie year.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. The guys I don't think they would move off of, I don't think they would move off of Reed, obviously.
Do they feel like an Amari Cooper signing team?
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe it's possible they get rid of both of Dobbs and Watson. Like, they try to make room for some of these veteran wide receivers that are available once it gets closer to camp. And maybe that's what makes what they're doing make a little bit more sense.
It's very interesting. Keenan Allen is out there too. Probably I don't know. Who do you think has more left, Allen or Cooper?
You said more left, who or Cooper?
Keenan Allen or Amari Cooper?
Probably Amari.
Yeah.
Probably Amari. Amari had a weird year last year. I think if Amari, I think Amari got like 2 more decent years in him.
Okay.
Because he had that whole contract thing, shows up to camp, a little bit later, out of his rhythm. The whole quarterback thing was awful in Cleveland last year. Gets traded midseason to Buffalo, which is always a raw deal. And then, he had some moments there in Buffalo for sure. But, I think more is there than, with Keenan Allen, who had a full season and still produced the same level that Amari did without any of the weirdness.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Agreed. All right. Next name on this list, Houston Texans wide receiver Christian Kirk. The Texans entered the draft. They had brought in Steph Diggs in free agency. Tank Dell may not play this year, is what this
Didn't
says.
They just trade for Christian Kirk?
Yeah, the last season. Last season, yeah. Jaden Higgins
That was middle
and
of the year
Jill.
though, right?
Yeah, 1 year, right? Uh,
Well, I'm saying like they
J-
did that in the middle of the season, right?
I'm not sure about that. Um, I'd have to look at that. But so they did bring in both wide receivers from Iowa State. Remember Higgins and Noel. They also have obviously Nico Collins, who's a baller, and then, however, that means no other wide receiver on the roster is assured of a place on the team. That includes veteran Christian Kirk, whom the Texans just acquired in a trade for a 7th-round pick with the Jaguars back in March. There you
Mm-hmm.
go. So they made a very small investment in him, a 7th-round pick, and they have tons of wide receivers basically on this team. Is Kirk expendable? Would you be interested?
Yeah, I would be interested in Christian Kirk. I think that's a
Yeah.
veteran that makes sense for this room. I do think you want at least one guy in that room who's had some like long-term NFL experience. I think that's just good for teaching these young guys.
Yeah.
Because I think right now, Deontay Johnson's the oldest guy in that room.
Probably, yeah, it would have to be,
Deontay or
right?
Jerry, like one of them.
Yep.
I don't know which one was drafted beforehand, but those are the veterans in that wide receiver
Yeah.
room, which
Yeah.
is
Not great.
not great. So yeah, I would definitely like to bring in a real vet just to have that presence there. But yeah, Christian Kirk, I thought that made sense. Even before the draft.
Yeah, me too. All right. Next name up, wide receiver Hollywood Brown from the Chiefs. They picked Jalen Royals as their true X who could displace Brown. This says Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy should eat up most of the snaps in the slot and flanker positions. Juju Smith-Schuster tapping in for some slot work. Brown was essentially out of the mix in the playoffs, 5 catches on 13 targets, and only received a 1-year deal in free agency. There's a scenario where Royals adds a vertical contested catch element that Brown can't replicate. I don't know about that, but Royals flashes in camp and preseason reps, Brown could be trade bait. What do you think?
Who did they say was going to be trade bait?
Hollywood Brown.
Someone going to trade for Hollywood Brown?
That's what they're saying here. Because they have Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, they drafted Royals they're saying that to take his spot, to take Hollywood Brown's spot. Because he got hurt in the preseason last year, right? Didn't play most of the year. In the playoffs, he only had 5 catches on 13 targets. Only received a 1-year deal in free agency, they're saying.
He's in Kansas City right now, right?
Yeah, Kansas City. Yeah, they're saying that in Kansas City with Rice, Worthy, Kelsey, Royals in there now, he could get squeezed. And like they're basically saying if Jalen Royals flashes in training camp, that Brown could potentially be a trade option for them. Would you be interested if you're the Browns?
Yeah, I'm not trading for Hollywood Brown. But if he gets released, I think he's somebody you consider. I think if he gets released, he probably ends up back in Baltimore.
Yep, that makes sense. That does make sense. Quentin Johnston from the Chargers is on here.
I'm good.
You knew that was coming, right?
Yeah, that's not the guy I mentioned beforehand, but that's you said it, and I'm like, yeah, Cleveland don't need that. Cleveland don't need that.
All right, very good. The reason why they deem him expendable: Mike Williams, Trey Harris, who I love. They added. And basically, he will be coming up on an extension at some point here in the next year or two. So
they brought back Mike Williams.
What's that?
They brought back Mike Williams.
They did.
That tells you everything you need to know about what they think about Quentin Johnson right there.
Exactly.
They let the dude walk because they thought they had Quentin Johnson. They saw one season of him and said, let's bring back Mike.
Yep. So Yeah. So, yeah, brought Williams back on a 1-year deal. He should be. They say Johnson should be on red alert after the Chargers draft activity at the wide receiver position. So,
Yeah, it's fair.
interesting. No interest in him though for you, right?
No, I'm good.
Okay. What about Jalen Naylor from the Vikings?
I think I'm good.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I'm good.
Well, so this is another team with a lot of young wide receivers. This is not. I have some interest here, but all right. So the Patriots, Steph Diggs, Mac Hollins in free agency, drafted Kyle Williams. They love Demario Douglas, but they also have Jalen Polk, Keyshawn Butte, however you say his name, Kendrick Bourne, and Javon Baker, all like early in their careers.
So Polk's probably not going anywhere, right?
That's the name they have up here. Polk.
Really? They say Polk's going to be the one open. I think the Browns would be interested in that.
Yeah. I have interest in him and Baker.
Because Polk was one of their draft targets in 2024. Was he a second-round pick?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, second-round pick, 37th pick in the draft. I think that screams Andrew Berry.
It does.
If they're willing to get off of him, right? And somehow he'll package him up with like Pierre Strong and get Jalen Polk back.
Yeah. Love that. Alan Lazard. I'll take a pass on that. I don't know how you feel.
Yeah, I'm good on that.
Yeah. I think that may be it for this list. On the free agent list, there is
So before we move on, the guy that I was alluding to.
Yeah.
Treylon Burks.
Yes.
Tennessee.
He's on a ton of lists. He's not on this one, but he's on a ton of them.
Yeah.
Would you get him?
I think Andrew would.
Yeah.
I think Andrew would.
First round pick.
They loved him coming out, right? Like that was somebody who it was very public that the Browns were interested in. Let me check how old he is. He's only 25 years old, right? Didn't get his 5th-year option, which makes him a lot more attainable, right?
Yes.
So he could get cut. He could be traded for. There's a lot of different ways that it can work out. You know, I think that screams like, okay, Andrew Berry, give this guy a flyer. You know, what's really the difference between giving Treylon Burks some snaps and giving, you know, Mike Woods snaps, right? Like,
exactly.
You know, it's not that different.
No, I totally agree. He was on my trade candidate list. I did it like a month and a half ago. He's a guy I think they should have interest in for sure. They got a lot going on in that wide receiver room as well. It doesn't look like they're going to extend him. So anything they could get back would be great. And I agree with you. He would be able to he adds some intrigue to the room for sure. And it's like you said, it screams it's right down the alley of Andrew Berry's playbook there. So so there's the breakdown on the edge in the wide receiver position tonight on things I think I know. You got any parting words for us on any of this, Quincy, before we get out of here?
Parting words on what the wide receiver room?
Anything you want, man.
I would say if you are somebody who likes to smoke cigarettes, you can smoke cigarettes at the Cleveland Browns at Huntington Bank Stadium because I don't think you have to worry about there being too much explosion when the Browns offense is on the field, right? I don't think they're aiming for a lot of explosion there. You know, could be wrong there, but they don't seem like they're trying to boom dynamite people. It seems like they're trying to get the old sledgehammer and move bodies the old-fashioned way. And look, that's a fun way of playing football. I have no problem with it, but that certainly seems like what the Browns are aiming for this year, understanding that they don't have a quarterback. So It's going to be fun to see them play some smash mouth football, but the wide receiver room looks this way not because it's an accident, but because that's what they are okay with the wide receiver room looking like.
Exactly.
And to be fair, outside the Bengals, nobody in the division has an impressive looking wide receiver room at all, right? We all have these we play smash mouth football wide receiving rooms where it's like there's one guy, a lot of tight ends, and then just we hope we move you, right? And they're playing AFC North football for sure. So that's going to be the Browns' focus this year. We'll see if they're successful in that focus. But if they are successful, at least this will be a team you have fun with.
Yeah, agreed. Well said. Everybody go follow Quincy Carrier on Twitter at Quen_C. Thanks, Quincy. Fantastic as always joining me here on Things I Think I Know About the Browns. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. My name is Brad Ward for Quincy Carrier. We are out.